Thank you so much for the opportunity to join this meeting. So just as a very brief background, my background's in paediatrics, and as a regulator, and Aparito is based in Wrexham Technology Park in North Wales, and have been providing a software platform to support clinical trials and decentralized clinical trials for around 7 years now. So for today, I thought I would just give a recap of the patient onboarding to the app itself, and maybe touch on the data capture schedule. As you're very aware, that when a patient consents, there is the option to offer data capture of the PROs. I'm not going to go into the PROs today. I'm sure Melanie covered all the aspects from the PRO the other week that she presented, but you'll be aware that there is the option for them to select reporting via the app or to have follow-up telephone calls, and where we're very strongly advocating, of course, is to try and encourage and support them to be able to download the app and start the real-time data capture in that regard. So the app is available on iOS and Android. The icon looks a bit like this yellow A, and it's sort of using the functionality of Atom 5 by Aparito, either in the App Store or Google Play Store, depending if they are an Android or an iOS user. They can use iPads or tablets as well. It's not just restricted to smartphones as such. But it is helpful that they have some of the more recent software, so that's software that's been sort of upgraded in the last sort of 4 or 5 years to make the app compatible. When you have randomized the patient, you will have been given the 6-digit code. The app here does have the functionality to scan QR code, but the way the current sort of system of the randomization, it's very focused on just using the 6-digit code here. So you can ignore the camera functionality in this screen and just focus on this data manual input and use the 6-digit code. It is currently very sensitive to being lowercase versus capital. We are about to implement a change to take away some sensitivities, but currently the first 2 digits is a lowercase L and a lowercase O. So that's Lima, Oscar, both lowercase. But we are changing that to avoid any interpretation of lower and capital letters. It is important to note that the 6-digit code is only works once. So once it's been used, if you've had to delete and start again, or if there's anything, you would need to then issue a new 6-digit code for that patient. And we can support. There is obviously a process that Liverpool has done, and if that needs to be done after the patient is discharged, we can support talking them through on the phone to do that at a later time point if there is whatever reason. So this is what the app looks like when they download it. The orange color indicates that there's something to be done, so an action. And if it's a white tab, it's more of a for your information. And so all the PROs, the patient-reported outcomes, are listed under the questionnaire. And they also have an information module which serves as a library that they can use. The bottom row functions as a navigation. So the A in the house is the home to bring them back here. But when you see the orange underneath, it sort of tells you which part of the modules you're in. When they complete it, they are asked to confirm whether they are a patient or whether they are a proxy reporter on behalf of the patient, so that we can have that distinction. And then they're all listed here. As I say, Mel has updated you on the PROs. What we have done here, of course, is give them titles that would be more reflective of what patient communities would know, as opposed to the sort of, the GAD or the FACET or acronyms that wouldn't necessarily be very meaningful to the patients, so that they know which one to click on. As part of this study, we are also doing a SWOT analysis, and that's to see if there is a different level of engagement in patients that get pushed out the notification to complete this weekly for 4 weeks and then roll on to monthly, or SWOT 2 is weekly for 12 weeks and then monthly. So depending on which SWOT group they are randomized to will dictate how often they get to ask to complete the patient-reported outcomes. And when you're introducing the app to them, or even about the telephone questionnaires, I guess it is quite important to explain to them that you won't know which randomization that they'll be in, but the best way to say is that they will be having a variation of either weekly or monthly for the duration of the study. When there is a time point that they need to complete it, they will receive a notification on the front of their phone, much like you would with a WhatsApp or a text message. And then the icon will then have a number, like on the top right hand side here, that indicates how many questionnaires or how many actions that they have to do. And as they complete those, that number will then disappear or go completely or reduce if they're sort of doing it in various stages. The other thing that's really important to explain to the patient is that the questionnaires are available in the app for a 3-day window. And if they don't complete it within that 3-day window, then it disappears and the app would look empty without questionnaires. Or of course, if they have completed them within that 3-day window, the app will then remain empty until the follow-up notification comes for them to complete it. We really strongly want to encourage all the baseline data to be captured while the patient is in the hospital, not only to support them in the familiarization of the app, but also to make sure that we get true baseline data and not data that after they've gone home. And we encourage them to kind of do follow-up phone calls. So if at all possible, please make sure that they have the app fully downloaded, the 6-digit code inputted, and the PROs completed while they are in the hospital setting, so that they do have the opportunity to ask any questions. And critically to explain the notifications and this 3-day time window, so not to be worried if they seem to go into it expecting something daily or more frequently than that. And then just some issues. I know some hospitals and some NHS trusts don't necessarily have good connectivity or Wi-Fi. So it is really quite important to make sure when you're downloading the app that there is strong Wi-Fi. Otherwise, you might have just the little icon that turns around in circle, or that it doesn't come through. One way, if you have downloaded it and you're not in a very good Wi-Fi or connectivity issue, would be to get them to close the app and then reopen it, and then that will hopefully force the connectivity to be searched for again. But yeah, it's not ideal if you're in the sort of lower grounds of a very thick walled hospital with poor connectivity. I've already alluded to this, but it is important to remember that the 6-digit code can only be used once, and you need to issue a second code if we need to do that one again. And for the time being, as I mentioned, the lowercase is quite important. So it's the lower L and lower O for Lima Oscar, but we will be simplifying that soon. And yeah, this is some of the other tips I mentioned to help. One other thing, if they do have a very old phone with limited memory, that may, in very small instances, impact on their ability to download a new app if they have very limited memory on their phone. So I kind of hope that was helpful. I've just sort of tried to go through the key areas and sort of keen to just open it up for discussion or any Q&A opportunities.
Thank you, Ellen. Does anyone have any questions? You can either add it to the chat or put your hand up and we'll answer any questions you've got.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
One of my participants, you have answered part of it, but one of my participants, and I wasn't sure what to do. They couldn't download the app because they didn't have a device that had enough capacity on it, and they said they were happy to do it when they got home on a different device. So in that instance, if that happened again, they consent to the app download of the questionnaires. And in that instance, when they then say if you consented them and randomized them and they're going home more than the 3 days, does that then impact, is that time frame about the notification and completion of the questionnaires start once you've downloaded the app? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, so if the starting point will be from the randomization date, so ideally it will be within that 3-day time window. So just to be aware, if it is greater than 3 days since when you randomized them to when they were discharged and downloaded the app, then that would take them out of that time window.
Okay, so what would happen in that situation? Because I've had that situation with my patient. I'm not sure whether I can't remember whether they were then discharging outside of the window. But what would happen in that situation? They just miss your baseline ones.
I think so, yeah. I mean, we'd still obviously want to make sure that they had the app. They could potentially have the telephone interviews for those baselines rather than wait. But it's probably a question for the central team that if we do miss that baseline, would you like them to have a telephone call for that initial baseline and then move on to the app for the subsequent ones to avoid that baseline data loss?
So at the moment, we don't have that functionality in place. So at the point of randomizing, that's when you would choose if it was an app or the central team. So I think in that case, if they go for the app, then we would have to miss that, the baseline at that point. And then as soon as they can download it, we'd capture the data that way.
Okay, thank you.
I think there's a question in the chat, Emma, from Rebecca saying the team have received a request to remind patients to download the app, but they're time poor. Can the team send central emails instead? So I think the issue that we're trying to address here, Rebecca, is that when the app has not been downloaded, we can't tell centrally whether it's been not downloaded because there was a problem when people tried to do it, whether the patient said they wanted to do it when they were at home or anything else. So I think the contacts from the LCTC team to sites was to try and say, do you know if there's a problem? What went on? Why didn't this happen? And it was for just kind of 7 patients so far that we'd followed up about queries of that, which you'll have information that we don't. So it will need to be a joint approach to following up on those issues.
Yeah, sorry, it's just that it's it's quite our COVID cases are going up at the moment, and so someone trying to go back over that is something that we don't have capacity for at the moment. So yeah, I mean we'll try, but if the numbers stay low, but there are days like today we've had to bin all our normal routine clinics just because COVID's taken over again. So
but even if the response is we don't know if there's a problem,
okay,
that's fine. Right. If it's
okay,
yes, we know Mrs. Scroggins really struggled because her phone was broken or whatever, okay, then we know what strategy to put in place, but we can't tell if no, she just didn't want to, or no, there was a problem.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Jan, do you have a question?
Hi, yes. Sorry, I'm all very new to this because it's still set up at our site. So, and this is my first meeting, so I'm probably way behind everybody else. But at point of randomisation, when you're offering either the app or the telephone follow-up, what do you do at baseline if they go for telephone follow-up? Who does it, and where's it documented?
We will phone them as soon as they get home from the central team. So if you say they're going to be telephone, that appears on our telephone call system to phone them and find out when they're going to be at home.
So how will you know? Where will I be filling that in? Sorry, I'm not unsure of this.
When you randomise, so it'll give you the option to say whether the patient's opted to use the app or be contacted by the central team, and then the central team has access to the contact details and they'll contact the patient.
Fantastic. And then all the follow-up calls will be by the central team.
Yeah, that's right.
Lovely. Thank you very much for that. Thank you.